Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris and I'm one of the Shortcuts educators and training specialists here. So this morning we are going to be going through our brand new masterclass, and it's pretty much all things point of sale, and that's going to be covering transactions, refunding, voiding transactions, everything sort of along those lines. Now, the reason we've sort of set this up is something we get asked quite a lot, and it's one of those things that can have quite a huge knock-on effect. So what we're going to do today is we're going to strip it right back. We're going to discuss all things point of sale. We're going to look at creating new payment types, how to perform refunds, how and when to void a transaction. And then we're going to look at a couple of reports once we've done that. So it's going to be quite an in-depth training session, but you'll see it's one of those things that all sort of has like a chain link knock-on effect. Now, as always, I know some of you will have joined me before. I know some of you are brand new to my masterclasses. So before we get into the good stuff, there is just a small amount of housekeeping. So of course, before we begin, the duration of this class, and with the majority of all of my classes, the duration is approximately 60 minutes. I do try to keep it to 45 minutes to an hour, just in case you're joining me in between any of your clients or anything like that, or it's your day off. My microphone has been switched on, whereas everyone else has automatically been muted. But I do always say, if you're familiar with being on my classes before, feel free to chat with me, make it interactive, everything like that. Your speakers must be turned on to hear this classroom session. So as we were saying just a few minutes ago, feel free to make yourself comfortable, get the volume turned up nice, and I'll make sure you can hear me nice and clearly. And questions will be taken throughout or at the end via the chat box, or as we were just saying, if you do want to unmute yourself and have a little chat with me, that's perfectly fine to do so, whatever you feel most confident doing. Now, as with all of my classes, previously I used to have a PowerPoint presentation. I've sort of gone through this quite a bit recently. I used to have a PowerPoint presentation at the beginning, which would sort of go through everything. But we kind of decided, I'm quite a visual person. I quite like to get right into the good stuff and get my live demonstration going, so you can follow alongside with me as well and see it literally how it is. So that's pretty much all of this morning is going to be. For the next 45 to 60 minutes, we're going to be going through a live demonstration using my test system. So we're going to get to that in just a sec. But before we do, as always, if you do want to chat with me further, you can do so. Feel free to drop, share, like, follow us on our social media on Instagram.com/shortcutsuk, and same for Facebook /shortcutsuk. Now, I know some of you have joined me and signed up through our social media pages, and I know some of you receive our marketing correspondence. If you do want to drop me an email, you can do so at education@shortcuts.co.uk. That's education@shortcuts.co.uk, or you can give us a call on 0161 972 4900, and it's option 4. Excellent stuff. So with that being said, ladies and gents, we are now ready to get into our live demonstration for all things point of sale. And again, just to recap, we're going to be going through refunds, creating new payment types, voiding transactions, and then just basically all things point of sale. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up my Shortcuts Fusion system. Sorry, just for the people that are just joining us, we've literally just done the introductions. We're about to get into the live demonstration now. So no problem whatsoever. It's not a problem. We're about to literally get into the live demonstration now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our Shortcuts Fusion system. Excellent stuff. So we've opened up our Shortcuts Fusion system. So when it comes to point of sale transactions, payments, everything like that, we often take for granted that we get the ball rolling from this by payment types. So as soon as we've got that transaction, we need to choose a payment type. And we take for granted 99% of the time, it's either going to be a cash or a credit or debit card transaction. And that really sort of goes without saying, that's really a default. But if you want to make sure your reports are accurate, you want to make sure your trading summary is accurate, you want to make sure your end of day is completely accurate, we may need to introduce a brand new payment type. Now, you might be thinking right now, well, what kind of payment types would we be talking about here, Chris? Because I've already got credit and debit card and everything like that. But what about if you've got a self-employed staff member with a sum-up machine? Maybe you take bank transfers, all different things like that. And this is all a way to make your reporting and your point of sale experience seamless, but also that little bit more accurate. And it's very quick and simple to do. So I'm going to create a new payment type and I'm going to call it bank transfer. Because a lot of the time, if the card declines or whatever it may be, or they forget their purse or their wallet, we can do a bank transfer. So we're going to set this up now, but the theory is pretty much the same for all different payment types. So let's start by setting up a brand new payment type. So what we're going to do is we're going to click onto Setup on the right-hand side of our navigation bar, and we're going to click onto Configuration. Then over on the left-hand side, you will see we have a payment types icon just there. Okay, so we're going to click onto payment types. Now you'll see from the drop-down arrow, we have got lots of different payment types just here. Now, some of these you will have, some of these you won't have. So you've probably got things like account, you've got cash, cash out, and so forth. But we're going to create a brand new payment type to make our point of sale experience that little bit easier. So towards the center bottom of our screen, we're going to click onto the new icon. And then in the payment type name, I'm just going to type in bank transfer. Now, of course, this could be if you're doing a sum up machine, or maybe you've got a self-employed staff member, Amex, whatever it may be, a different kind of payment type, maybe even PayPal or Stripe refund or something along those lines. So I'm going to type in bank transfer. Then we get some options on the right-hand side. Now, 50% of these we probably won't change. The first one we can see, this is active, so that's perfectly fine. Then we've got this tick box underneath here. So what does a banking mean? So the best way to explain this would be, if this was a payment type, we would physically sort of take to the bank at the end of the working day or the end of the working week. And the other way to think of this is, when we do the cashing up, we do our end of day wizard, and it asks us to input our counts at the end. And typically we've got the boxes where we can type in our denominations for cash and card and things like that. If we were to click the banking box, this field would appear when we do cashing up at the end of the day. So what would that mean? In a real life scenario, when we do our end of day wizard and it asks us to input the cash, we put our float in and then we input the cash. And then underneath it, we've got a little box that says credit and debit card, and we input the credit and debit card findings. We would then also have to input the bank transfer amount. Now, if we think of this as a literal example, let's say your front of house staff do your end of day banking at the end of the day. Would that staff member have access to your bank details to be able to see how much money was inputted in the way of a bank transfer? Because remember, if we tick this box, as soon as we get to the end of the day, it's going to ask us to input how much money we took for this brand new payment type. So if it's a payment type you're going to have to hand and you're going to be able to know the values of this, you can input this at the end of the day. So you will need to tick the banking box. Now, also think about this if you're doing this for a self-employed staff member. We have a lot of self-employed staff members. They have their own card machine, but maybe the salon closes at 9, they finish at 6. When you go to do the end of day cashing up at the end of the day, are you going to have their monetary values to input? If you do, you can tick the banking box. If not, you can leave it unticked. Now, one thing to remember with this is purely for your end of day wizard. If you tick the box, it will ask you to input how much money was created in the way of a bank transfer, just like you do previously for cash or card. If you leave it unticked, it will not ask you to input. However, the values will not go missing or anything silly like that. They will still appear on your end of day trading summary. So the values won't be lost or missing or hidden or anything crazy like that. It will just not ask you to input the figures when you do your end of day wizard. Then underneath, we can treat the changes tick, but there's not going to be any change for a bank transfer. You can also tick this box if you want this to open the cash drawer. Now, typically we only do this for cash or sometimes card payments, but if when we're taking a bank transfer, obviously we do not need to have the cash drawer open. And also, is it a credit or an electronic funds transfer card? Now, what that means is, when we choose the normal payment type in point of sale in the bottom right, When we click onto card, it will bring this option up. So this would be handy if you're doing something like a Mastercard or an Amex, because that is literally a credit or an electronic funds transfer card, depending on your region. So again, we don't need to do that because it's not a physical card. It's not a gift card or a loyalty card, and it's not going to be treated as a cancellation charge. So if you were setting up a bank transfer, all I would do is then just click save in the bottom right. So that's the first thing we're going to do there. And you may just have to give just a very quick restart to your shortcut system there. So we've set up a brand new payment type. So now we're going to get right into the depths of our point of sale. So before we do so, again, we're going to look at the back end side of things when it comes to point of sale. And again, we're going to go to setup and configuration, just like we did. But you'll notice we've got this option just here that says point of sale. Now, all of these tick boxes here really determine the settings of your point of sale. Now, me personally, I don't really make a great deal of changes to this here. But one thing in particular we do often get asked at the point of sale screen is, how can I prompt my clients to rebook? And we've got this option just here. It's about the 5th or the 6th option down that says ask to rebook. Now, as soon as we click finish sale, it's going to ask us to rebook this client. So we're going to choose the payment type, click onto ask rebook, and then from there, are we going to rebook that client in? And that will prompt a credit for that staff member. Now, also as well, typically, I like to have these two options ticked here. Require discount reason or require refund reason. So what that would mean is if we are ever given a discount, we would have to choose a discount reason, and these can be found on the left-hand side just here. So rather than just giving a monetary value away, we have to choose a refund reason. Same as a discount, so we have to choose a discount reason. And exactly the same if we're performing a refund. So why did we refund that client? Now, I don't tend to make a great deal of changes here. And again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend you making many changes to your point of sale screen unless you found, that's one of the most common questions we get asked is, how can I be prompted to rebook my customers there? Now, if you do want tips to go through the system, so you can choose this option just here that says allow tips. Give tips directly from the register will mean if it was a cash tip, you will take that money directly from the cash register straight away. So it will be deducted from your end of day wizard. So that cash will have to be taken out of the till. Allow tips to business. That means rather than tipping an employee, the business will be tipped, which I think is quite nice if you want that to be the case. But typically in the United Kingdom, we tip an employee rather than the business as a whole. Enter tips when clocking off if you're using the clocking off function. It's not something we've seen a great deal of recently. Prompt for tip on card payment. If you're using an integrated card machine with us, you can have the gratuity pop up, very similar to what we get in restaurants. And then also as well, you can warn when the tip exceeds a fixed amount. So maybe you want to be warned if the tip is going to exceed £20 or £30. And then also warn when tip exceeds 25% of the sale. So if they're going to give a tip which is 25% or more of the total value sale. But I tend to say with this, it's entirely up to you. If that client wishes to tip you a crazy amount or a lot amount, you've earned it. So you can untick these two if you wish to. And then all we're going to do is we're going to click done and then click done again. And we may just have to give a quick restart to a shortcut system. So I do give a quick restart to our shortcut system. All we do is main, scroll down, exit, next exit, and then exit shortcuts. Give it a couple of seconds and then you can restart shortcuts from there. So we've looked at the back end side of point of sale and we've looked at creating our payment types. So then, what about refunds? Okay. It's not something we get asked a great deal, but the reason I think you should know how to perform a refund is a lot of the times if we just give the money back to the client, it will of course affect cashing up when we get to the end of the day. So I know a lot of businesses, they don't typically get asked refunds, but it's great for products or anything like that. So we're going to first look at how to perform a refund, and there's really sort of two ways to do it. The first way is the most easiest, the most accurate, and the way I would certainly recommend we all perform a refund. So when it comes to refunds, one thing we have to think about is a lot of us will be earning commission. So because of that, so that staff member doesn't get unnecessary commission if they had to have their service refunded for whatever reason, we need to be aware of that. So which employee performed that service in order to affect the commission one way or the other? So that's the first thing we would need to be made aware of. Which staff member performed that service when it comes to the refund? So what we're going to do on the right hand side is we're going to choose a client, okay? And then let's just choose, I think I've got a few services in here. So I'm going to choose myself from here. And then all we're going to do is we're going to click on to client history. And you can see in the client history, we've got the service here. So let's say Chris came in today for a barber cut and finish. He wasn't happy with his service. So he's not going to allow us to rectify whatever it may be. So we're going to have to refund him. So we've gone into the client's history and we can see the client just here. We're now going to use the right-hand side of our mouse and we're going to go down to the option, the fourth option down, that says refund. So we're going to click onto refund. And it says, Chris is being transferred to the point of sale screen, ready to complete the transaction. So nice and simple, all we now need to do is click done and go to point of sale on the right-hand side of our navigation bar. And you can see here, there is the transaction. So we haven't had to do anything there. We can now see it is a refund. So what we're going to do is now click finish sale in the bottom right-hand corner. Select payment type to refund to, and you can see there's our brand new payment type there that we used. So how did Chris pay? Cash or card? Well, Chris paid via cash. So we're going to click onto cash. And then we're going to select a reason for the refund. So when we were looking at the back end configuration of our point of sale, we said we needed to select a refund reason. I'm just going to choose other, okay, because he was unhappy with his service. And then we just click done. And then please choose from the following options to give the receipt to. Is it going to be email and print, or no receipt? Well, I'm just going to click on to no receipt, just there. And that is the quickest and most accurate way to perform a seamless refund because we did it straight through the client's history. But there is another way to do it, and it's a little bit more long-winded. But again, we always need to remember which employee performed that service. So we knew Chris performed that service, and we had to go into the client history to find that anyway, because we had to see which employee performed that service. So another way you can do it is a little bit more manual, and you may wish to do it this way, ladies and gents, if you're only offering a partial refund, because you saw with that it was a full refund and I wasn't able to change the amount. So maybe you're only going to offer a partial refund rather than the full amount. So if you're going to do a partial refund, what we would do is again find clients on the right hand side and we would go into that client's history. So if we go into the client's history again, and we can then find that service just there. So we know Amelia performed the service there. So we know Amelia did that barber dry cut just in case there was commission applicable. But we're only going to perform a partial refund. So we're going to basically reverse the procedure. So we're going to go into our point of sale screen and we're going to click new sale in the top left hand corner. And we're going to find the employee. Sorry, we're going to find the client. Once we've clicked onto the client, we're then going to click next. Oh, let's just get rid of that. Oh, let's find somebody else. Who else have we got? There we go. So now we found the correct client. We're now going to click onto any one of the empty grey squares, and we're basically going to recreate the transaction and then just refund it that way. So we're going to click here and we're going to choose who did the service. So we know it was Amelia that performed the service. Again, this is all to do with commission. We're now going to click onto service and we're going to choose the barber dry cut. So again, we're just reversing the transaction. We're now going to change the price because again, we don't want to perform a full refund. We only want to do a partial refund. So we're going to just refund £3 here. But of course, this at the moment would just be a normal transaction. So if we click the minus button just here, this is now going to be cash out. So this is going to be a refund, and exactly the same as before. We just click finish sale and then just choose the payment type and the reason why, and then we click done. And of course, exactly the same as before, we can choose the receipt option just there. So that's two ways there, ladies and gents, of how we can offer a refund. The first way is if we're refunding 100% of the bill, and we do that through the client screen on the right hand side and the client's history. Once we found the client's history, we can then right click and then refund. If not, if you want to do it a bit more manual, or you just want to offer a partial refund, go through the point of sale screen, find the client in the top left, create the transaction, and then just add it to a minus by clicking the minus icon just there. Excellent stuff. So then what about voiding a transaction? Well, to be totally honest with you, ladies and gents, it's something I've not really used. And to be honest, I've used shortcuts for roughly 10 or 11 years now, and it's not something I use a great deal. But why would we void a transaction? Well, it's typically done if we run it through in error. Now, the process of voiding, the process of voiding is really a way to stop the merchant taking the money. Okay, so if we ran a transaction through incorrectly at the point of sale screen, we would then void it just to stop any money going through. So how do we void a transaction? Like I said, it's not something I do a great deal of. Typically, we are finding people are wanting to void transactions because they ran it through incorrectly. Now, what I mean by that, ladies and gents, is they ran it through as cash when it was really a card payment. And that's something we're hearing a little bit more of recently. Did we run that transaction through as cash when they really paid by card, or vice versa? So we typically wanted to void the transaction in order to reverse that procedure. However, in a couple of minutes' time, I'm going to show you a great way to reverse the transaction payment type without the need to void the transaction. However, if you did run a transaction through incorrectly and you do need to void it, please make sure you void the transaction before you perform end of day. You can only void a transaction in a current session. Once you perform end of day, once you perform end session, you will not be able to go back and void that transaction, okay? Because of course that money has now been sent to the merchant. So to void a transaction, in the bottom left-hand corner of the point of sale screen, we are just going to click onto trans in the bottom left-hand corner. So trans, hashtag trans transactions, and the numerical value there. Once we click onto it, you will see a list of all of the transactions for today. Now, down on the left-hand side, you can expand whichever transaction is applicable. And then all we would need to do is right-click and then void. And you will see it says voiding a transaction will void all histories relating to this transaction and update any product counts. This process cannot be reversed. Proceed. However, a lot of the times, I spoke to a fair few people over the last couple of weeks that have said to me, Chris, the reason I'm voiding this transaction is because that client paid by cash and I accidentally ran it through as card. This typically happens if the client goes to present their card. We, in our haste, run it through as a card payment at the point of sale screen. Then the card declines or the card machine goes down, whatever it may be, and they end up paying with cash. But the system now thinks they have paid by card, which will, of course, have a knock-on effect to our end of day. So in our point of sale screen, if this should happen, what we can do is we can change the payment type. Now, if you do need to backtrack, that's perfectly fine to do so. So in the top right-hand corner, we're going to choose the date, so Monday the 11th, and I'm just going to go back to Friday. And I've got a lot of transactions just here. So I can see here, there was a transaction that was ran through as cash as £50. But we now know this was actually paid in card. So how can we change this payment type? Well, if we click onto the transaction just here, towards the bottom left-hand corner, we've got edit payment. We click onto this here, you will see we've got the payment type just here, cash. We click onto it. Now we know the client didn't pay by cash. They didn't pay anything in cash. So all we're going to do is choose 0. And we're going to think of this literally. The client did not pay anything in cash. So we're going to click done. And now at this stage, you may think to yourself, oh, did they pay cash? Was it card? Yeah, so they paid by card. We know it wasn't cash. But how much did they pay? Was it £50? Was it £60? No need to panic. We can see at the top here, we've got the sale total. And also, if we click onto card, just here, choose credit and debit card, you will see it automatically changes it to 50 because it knows that transaction was £50. So then all we do is we click done. And then we just click done again. Are you sure you want to update this transaction? Now, as soon as we click on to done, you will see we have an amendment just here. So that is the ideal and perfect way to switch that transaction around. So essentially, no need to void it and run it back through. Just go in and amend the payment type, switch it from cash to card or card to cash. And you can do that as many times as you need to. So maybe you accidentally now chose card and it was supposed to be that brand new payment type we ran through as bank transfer. And you can also do exactly the same for the employee. So maybe, again, thinking of commission, maybe you ran it through as the wrong employee when it should have been somebody else. This often happens with product sales. Sometimes we forget to choose the correct employee. And again, we can do this down the left-hand side here. You can see you can click Edit Employee. Oh, let's just get off that one there. Let's find a good transaction to change. There we go. So we can see there, we got a nice little product that went through under Amy, but it should have been through as me. So Amy's, of course, going to earn commission on this, but she was accidentally just logged in. She didn't mean to run through this product sale, which was essentially mine under her name. So again, we just click onto that transaction in the point of sale screen, and we just choose Edit Employee in the bottom left. Choose the relevant transaction and just click Employee, and then we can switch it to the correct employee. Now, please bear in mind, ladies and gents, this is all tracked. So you can see the amendments just here. So you won't be able to get away with being sneaky and going there and thinking, oh, I'll just have, I'll take all of the commission. It's all tracked in the log and you can see the amendment here. So if you do go in and change it, this will be tracked in the log and in the point of sale screen just there. And then we're just going to click done and exit out of that. So again, just to recap, we've looked at new payment types, we've looked at different ways to refund, and we've looked at voiding, and we've also looked at the back end side of point of sale. So of course, we can now move on to all things point of sale. So on the right hand side, again, we're going to click onto point of sale, and we're going to really deconstruct this point of sale screen. Now, a lot of you will have seen this because you use it sort of every 10, 15, 20 minutes, all day, every day. But there are just a couple of things to just really be made aware of. So in the top left, you will see we've got client profile and we've got client history. So whichever client we are looking at, we can see their profile and you can update any of their relevant information from here if you need to. This is great if that client says to you, I noticed you had my phone number down wrong, or a clerical error or an incorrect spelling of my last or first name. You can also update the email address here as well. We've also got the client history, a great way if the client is querying any previous payment types, any values, or anything like that at all. What we've got at the top here, this little icon here, basically is just a visual indicator to tell us that we do not have all of the personal information fields filled out in the client profile. So that would, of course, be things such as work phone or fax or physical address. You can see we've not filled these fields out. And you can kind of ignore that because I fully appreciate you're not going to take all client data just there. You can cancel a sale in the top right if you need to. And you can also see if this client has any money on their account or if they have any promotions or are part of a club or a membership program. So what about this drop down arrow at the top? Now, of course, we can see we've got hashtag walk-in. This is great if you just want to run a quick fringe trim through or a quick product sale or just, a quick cut and blow dry, maybe if they don't want to give their name. So it's basically just a walk-in client. Hashtag retail, which is where you can sell products. So again, if you don't want it to go under the client's history, it's just hashtag retail. Group is where you can group 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clients together to pay in a group. So maybe it's a hen party. Hashtag business. That's if you want to run products through as a business use, so it won't affect your end of day because no money is exchanging hands. And expense. Hashtag expense if you want to run through any petty cash. Now, as a handy tip as well, ladies and gents, you will also see if you have any clients that have yet to be checked out. So that is what appears just here. These are typically clients that are halfway through a transaction or have arrived in the appointment book, but have yet to be checked out. So they are the clients that we will see at the drop-down menu at the top of our screen. Bottom right-hand corner, we have all of our payment types. We should all hopefully be familiar with this. But of course, if you are a new staff member to the business and you want to just get to grips with the point of sale, that's what we've got in the bottom right-hand corner. We've got our payment types. You can add a tip on here to a transaction if you need to. Bottom left-hand corner, we have these two icons just here. The transactions, these are lists of all of the transactions. And then we've also got more actions. More actions, this is where we can open a cash register. So this is maybe if a client lost some earrings and you pop the earrings into the cash drawer, or maybe you need to grab something out of the cash drawer without a monetary value being specified. Now, a lot of the times, a lot of businesses say, well, we can only open a cash drawer if a bill goes through or anything like that. Take petty cash, that's your expenses. If you want to take petty cash for tea, milk, coffee, sugar, everything like that. Transfer money in. So transfer money in is, let's say you've run dry on your float or you've run out of cash in the till and nobody is paying by cash. So if somebody was to come in and pay by cash, you may not have any change for them. Transfer money in is if you were to go to the bank and withdraw money from your business account and then put that money into the till. Because of course, the point of sale system only typically recognizes money when we do our end of day, only typically recognizes the money in the way of product sales, gift card sales, service sales, anything like that. If we were to nip to the bank and withdraw £50 to put into the till to boost our float, to buffer our float, boost our float, anything like that. If we were to take that £50 from the bank, that would then not be recognized in the system. So we need to transfer money in now. Transfer money out is if you find you've got too much money in the till. I would typically just reduce my float and then do my end of day wizard. But if you do need to take money out of the till for certain things, transfer money out. This will all affect your end of day cashing up. In the bottom left-hand corner again, we've got transactions. So again, we've got all of our transactions for the day. And typically we will always look at this screen just here. And as we said, we've already made a start at looking at edit the payment type and editing the employees. But what you can do is you can also change the payment date in the top right. And you'll then be able to see transactions for each individual date here. You can also filter, so maybe you need to find a particular transaction. You can then find the client first name if you can't quite remember when they were booked in, but remember we could always use the client history. You can filter your payment types for that particular day, the transaction total greater or less than or equal to, and any transaction discount. It's a great way to find a particular transaction if you have a lot ran through for that particular day. But what about these tabs along the top here? Now, we typically look at the transaction list, but we've also got transaction totals. And I think it's always worth just being familiar with the transaction totals. So we're going to run through what each of these mean now. So on the left, you will have your takings. So right at the top here for this particular day, actually, let's go to Friday because I think there's a few more on there. At the top, you will have your takings. So for example, you will have your bankable payment types. Now, this will be things such as cash or credit and debit card. But remember at the beginning when we set up that brand new bank transfer payment type, there was a tick box for banking. We did tick the tick box for banking. That would appear under this here. So we can see there's our bankable payment types. Underneath, we've got our non-bankable payment types, such as account payments or that bank transfer custom payment type that we set up together right at the beginning of the training session. Redemptions. These will be things such as gift cards. This is when a client comes in and redeems their gift card. So essentially they use it as a form of payment. Prepayments and liabilities. So prepayments and liabilities is essentially money owed back to the business. Okay, a liability is money owed back to the business. And this is 99% of the time in the way of online payments or gift certificate sales. So if I was to sell a gift certificate, we've obviously taken £20 into the business, but that gift certificate has a monetary value of £20 ready to be brought back into the business and redeemed. So that is a prepayment and a liability. So it will show your gift certificate sales, your online payments and things like that. Underneath, we will have sales. Sales is the monetary value into the business. That's the sales, products and services and retail. Tax collected, so any tax collected, we can see this just here. If you're VAT registered, this will obviously show here. If you're not VAT registered, this will not show here. So then extra information. So what kind of things shows under extra information? Now, extra information typically shows things like refunds, service voids, or any money paid to account. So we can see that just there. So all those refunds we ran through, service refunds, money paid to account, retail only sales, service only sales, and voided transactions. So if you are worried that we're giving too many refunds away, or if you're worried there was a refund, this is where we would see it here. It's a great way. I like to be nice and literal, nice and specific. I think it is a great way to really keep on top of everything. And in cash movement, so we spoke earlier about cash transfer in and cash transfer out. So this is where all of that shows there. So again, it's a great way. If you're thinking, well, did somebody transfer money in, or more importantly, did they transfer money out, or were we using petty cash in, petty cash out, petty cash expenses, everything like that. This is where we are keeping on top of it. Now, again, I like to be nice and literal, nice and specific, and I love a paper trail for everything. So at the end of the day, before I perform my end of day wizard, I would always go into this, and it gives me a really clear picture of what has happened in that last trading session. It really shows me how many refunds I did, how much money in, how much money out. It's a great way to be nice and accurate. And along the top, last but not least, we have our trading sessions. So each time we perform an end of day wizard or end session through the point of sale screen, that is a completed trading session. So we can see when it was completed and at what time. So again, a great way to keep on top of who's performing end of day or ending sessions. And all we're going to do is just click done there. So that is an overview and quite an in-depth view of our point of sale screen. But what about, are there any reports? So you can see we've avoided transactions for today, and over the last couple of days, we've performed some refunds, okay? So is there a way to really see this black and white in some reports? So on the right-hand side of our screen, we're going to click onto Tools, and we're going to click onto Reports. Then over on the left-hand side, we're going to expand Transactions, and we're going to scroll down to Refunds List. Now, there is also an option here, Refunds List by Employee. That's who performed the refund, who was logged on to perform the refund. So then we just click View. And let's just set ourselves a date range here. Click onto View here, and then we can see all of the refunds that we did. So we can see there's the item there, the barber dry cut, and then we can see the refund reason, other. Refund amount, the hairspray, discarded the product, other reason, and the value. So it's a great way to keep on top of all of your refunds. Then down here we have a nice little table so we can see how many products, services, series, sundry, everything that was refunded. How many were products, how many were services, how many were series, how many were sundry items. So again, this is a great way over the weeks, over the months to see, are we refunding quite a lot of services, or are we refunding quite a lot of products? If so, Why are our clients unhappy? Are they not liking the products? Are we mis-selling products? Then when it comes to our products, were they discarded? Basically mean, did we throw them away? Were they returned, or did they were they returned to manufacture, or were they added back to stock? And again, see, was the product faulty? Was it damaged or anything like that? So again, it's a great way to really see the kind of refunds we're giving, what for, and why we're giving those refunds. Because again, we should be really keeping on top of that. Again, we can click back. Voided transactions. Click onto view, and again we can set ourselves a date range there as well if we need to. Click onto view, and then we can see there's the original sale there, the client, the amount and how they paid, the employee that was logged in and which desktop, and then we can see the voided transaction refund, the voided transaction reason. We ran through it in error, and who voided the transaction and at what time. So it's a great way, again, to really keep on top of that. Why are we voiding transaction? What's the reason why? And when did we do it? But remember, if you are voiding a transaction, ladies and gents, remember to do it in an active session. Once you perform end of day, once you perform end session, you will not be able to go back and void that transaction. But as we said, I've never really used it a great deal, to be totally honest. I typically just change the payment type because that's usually what we get asked for. Sort of in the last couple of months, we've had a bit of a spate of people saying, I ran it through an error as cash or card. Do I have to void it? No, remember to change that payment type just there. So another handy top tip for you. So we've looked at 2 reports there. And as we said, a lot of the times we do run those transactions through as cash when they should have been card, or card when they should have been cash. And of course, that causes a slight issue when it comes to the end of day session or the end of day cashing up. We're typically up on card or down on cash. But what about another handy top tip to really see why we were up or why we were down? Now, what I typically used to do is when I did my end of day cashing up is I would have all of my PDQ card machine receipts. Now, all of those receipts, the merchant copy, they will typically have obviously the monetary value, and they will also have the transaction date and time. Now, if there was a variance and I couldn't figure out why we were up or why we were down, what I would do is under my tools and reports, under transactions just here, I would expand this particular report just here, daily transactions, and we click on to view. Now, these are all of the transactions daily, so you'll notice you cannot add a date range here. But what I would do is click on to view, and it would then show me all of the transactions for today. It would then show me whether it was a cash, account, credit, or debit card transaction. Now, you'll also see it has got the checkout amount just here, the checkout time just here, and also the terminal. So what I would do is I would get all of my PDQ card receipts, and I would basically just cross-reference. Now, as this is a cash payment, typically we would not have a card machine receipt for it, but we should have one for this one just here. So I would then go to my PDQ receipts. I would then find the ones roughly around 9:15 and cross-reference and cross it off. So did I have one for $13.95 around 9:15? And then I would cross it off. Then as you go through all of your transactions, once you've tallied up all of the card receipts, you may have a slight variance. So maybe you had a credit and debit card receipt that wasn't $13.95, it was actually $3.95, and you had a card machine receipt for the 11th of September at 9:15. And then we can go, it should have been $13.95 instead of $3.95. Or again, you may look at it here and think, I've got a credit and debit card physical receipt for $13.95, but this is selected as cash. So then we know that client actually paid with credit and debit card, but we ran it through accidentally as cash. We can then change the payment type just there. So it's a great way to really double check your end of day cashing up. So I would use this to cross-reference just there. And then last but not least, you may be looking at this, ladies and gents, and thinking to yourself, okay, well, do I want my staff voiding transactions? Do I want them offering refunds? Okay, is it something I can control? Maybe I only want the owners to be able to form avoided transaction, maybe only the owners to refund a transaction. Is there a way I can sort of stop this from happening? And this can all be done via security. So on the right hand side, we're just going to click onto setup, and we're going to go into configuration. And in the bottom left hand corner, we're going to click onto general. And then towards the top left, we're going to click security. Now you've got all of your security levels here: owner, manager, and employee. So maybe I want to just double check the employees can or can't void transactions. So towards the top, I'm going to click onto access. And then on the left, I'm going to choose that level. And then if we go to point of sale here, you can see the level of access they will have just here. And then we can scroll down, refund a transaction just there, and then void a transaction just there. Now, while you're here, you may wish to just double check that the correct level has the correct level of access in the point of sale screen just here. And it's just a case of just working through and placing a tick or removing a tick from that security level. Once you're done, you may just wish to click done in the bottom right and give a quick restart to your main shortcut system. And that is it, ladies and gents. That is refunds, transactions, and all things point of sale. So thank you ever so much for watching and listening this morning, ladies and gents. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop those across to me now. Perfect. No worries. That's absolutely fine. No problem. Great stuff. Thank you. Perfect. Very, very good question, that one. Yep, we'll do a live demonstration for that one. Excellent question. How do we take a deposit and add to account? Well, if you want it to be sort of an automated account payment, such as a deposit, I would recommend setting up Stripe upfront payments or global payment upfront payments, which can be taken via the mobile guest app and your online booking. But if you want to take one over the phone or face-to-face, we do this by placing money on a client's account. So to do this, we go into our point of sale screen. And in the top left, we're going to click onto new sale. So when we add money to a client's account in the way of a deposit, or maybe they're just paying up front for their daughter or their son or whatever it may be, once in the point of sale screen, we have to assign it to the client's account. So we choose new sale in the top left. And then we choose that particular client, so whichever client it may be. So let's choose myself there. We'll add it under Chris Marketing just for the sake of it. So we go into Chris Marketing, we click Next, and then we click any one of the empty grey sale line squares just here. And then we choose a business because the money initially is going to the business in the way of a deposit. And then here, we're going to choose account. In the price column, because we're putting money on their account, we're going to choose the monetary value. So we're going to say they are paying, let's say they are paying a £10 deposit. We're putting £10 on their account. And then if you were doing this face-to-face, you would say to the client, okay, Chris, that is £10. How are you paying? Are you paying cash or card? You can just choose the relevant payment type in the bottom right-hand corner. So we're just going to run that through, and then we click Finish Sale. And you can choose the receipt option just here. I always want to keep saying refund. I do apologize. I want to say refund. We choose the receipt option just here. And then we just choose no receipt in this case. Now, if we were to go to clients on the right-hand side, just purely as a visual indicator, if we find Chris Marketing, we can see he has £10 in credit just here. Now, if Chris wishes to redeem this money, so he wants to spend this money, so he comes in a couple of days later, he's going to use his deposit. Obviously, we would book him in like normal, so just pretend, actually, let's book Chris in. Let's treat myself. So we're booked in like normal. Everything is exactly the same as normal here. We check the client out as per usual. Oh, let's get rid of that. And you can see right at the top here, I've got £10 on my account. So let's add, oh, I did my service. Sorry. Perfect. So there's my service just there. So you can see we've got £10 on my account. Here's the services. So we can see it's got a value of 10p, so nice cheap cut and finish. So what we're going to do is he's not going to pay via card. He's not going to pay via cash. He is going to use the other payment type, which is his account payment. So all we would do is click onto other. Once we've chosen the account payment option, this will appear just here. So we can see enter the amount. So he's going to spend 10p. We just click done and then finish sale. So at this point, it really just becomes another form of payment. And if you give it a couple of seconds, if we then go back to our client screen, search for the client, you will now see he's only £9.90 in credit because he spent that 10p just there. Now, again, just because I love a report, and as we said, I love a paper trail, if you go to Tools and Reports, and then on the left-hand side, you go to Business, expand Business, and go down to Client Account Statements. This will show you how much money clients have on their account, just in case your accountant has requested this information. And then we can choose today because it's most up to date. We click onto View. You'll see all of the clients that have money on their account. So on the left here, if we choose Chris Marketing, you can see the opening balance was 0. I then purchased on my account 10p. I had a cut and finish, which was £10. I had £10 in credit, sorry, it was 10p, had £10 in credit. My closing credit balance is £9.90. So I'm £9.90 in credit with yourselves. So that means I've got £9.90 left to spend. Now you will also see this as well. So that's a good report to see whether a client is in debit to you or is in credit to you. So we can see I'm £9.90 in credit because I've only spent 10p on my purchase. But you will also see this sort of information on a trading summary. So you may have seen things like payments to account and payments on account. So again, if we go to Tools and Reports, expand End of Day, go to our trading summary. We'll leave it for today's date, then click View. And we can see down here, payments to account, purchases on account. So we can see that information from there as well. Now, again, just to reiterate, the payments to account means we put money on our account. The purchases on account means we spent the money. Okay, so the top one means we added money to the account in the way of the deposit. The bottom one means we spent money on our account. So if you've ever looked at that on your trading summary and thought to yourself, what does that mean? That's what that is there. But that was a very, very good question, the lady that asked that one. Very, very good question. How do we put money on our account? Perfect. Any other questions for me this morning, ladies and gents? We're a little bit under the hour mark there. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop those across to me. If not, if you'd prefer not to add it into the chat box, if you want to unmute yourself and chat with me, feel free to. If not, you can also send me an email at education@shortcuts.co.uk. That's education@shortcuts.co.uk. Excellent stuff. So I think that's it for all of the questions this morning, ladies and gents. Thank you ever so much for joining me. There isn't a masterclass next week, but there should be the one after. So please look out for the marketing correspondence for that. And we will also be advertising on our social media pages as well. So thank you ever so much for joining me. Hope everyone has a lovely week, and I will speak to you all again soon. Thank you ever so much, ladies and gents. Take care. See you again soon. Bye-bye.